Hello and welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen, to our virtual meeting. Today, we're going to be going over the area of triangles, And so let me go ahead and share my screen. And as always, I do recommend that you take a minute or so to simply copy down the notes that you see before you. And that way you can just worry about following along. One note, I did put number 49 up here, unfortunately, because that actually should be number 50. This is our 50th lesson. And yes, below we do have the notes for the area of a trapezoid, but we'll tackle those later. Today, we're going to focus on the area of a triangle, Now, the area of a triangle is going to be base times the height. All right, so same as it would be for a parallelogram, whatever the base is times however high that shape goes. But then we are going to divide that by 2, which is the same thing as multiplying by a half. Now, please do not overcomplicate this. It is quite simple. All right, you're simply going to take the base and you're going to multiply it times the height, and you're going to then divide it by 2. The base times the height and then divided by 2. You're going to see it written a few different ways, like base times height divided by 2, 1/2 times base times height, which is base times height times a half, which is divided by 2. But that's it. Base times height divided by 2. Base times height divided by 2. And if you think about it, that makes perfect sense, because if you take a quadrilateral, if you take any kind of a parallelogram, really. If you take any kind of parallelogram and you take that parallelogram and divide it into 2, notice how you have 2 triangles, right? So you're really taking the base and the height, and then you're dividing it by 2. Now, I know it's not always as obvious, but that's always really the case. So again, just base times height, and you're dividing it by 2. For example, here we have a triangle, right? We have a triangle, and we want to get the area. Area is base times height divided by 2. I like this form of the formula the best. So let's find the base. So the base is down here, all right? And the height is up here. Now, there are different kinds of triangles, though. It's not always super obvious where the base and the height might be. For example, what if we have a triangle that looks something like this? All right. Well, that's when we have to remember, ladies and gentlemen, that the base and the height will always be perpendicular. The base and the height will always be perpendicular. Perpendicular. All right, and perpendicular simply means that when they intersect, when the base and the height intersect, they're going to make a 90-degree angle. So perpendicular simply means that the intersection makes a 90-degree angle. So here we have the base and here we have the height. So the shortest distance from the base to the highest point, so really from here to here, and it is perpendicular. Okay, those intersect perpendicularly. All right, so in this case, the base is 12, the height happens to be 12, and then we're going to multiply those to divide by 2. 12 times 12 is 144, divided by 2. So the area would be 144 divided by 2, which is 72 meters square meters. So again, ladies and gentlemen, regardless of the triangle, if it has, as long as you know what the base and the height are, you just multiply those together and then you divide it by 2. Now, on OneNote for today's assignment, if you go to third 9 weeks, scroll down to the bottom, you will find a worksheet where you're going to be doing precisely that. For example, consider the very first one. So we have numbers 1 through 14. Consider the very first one. And we need to find the area of each of these triangles. So again, we remember that, so for number 1, that the area is going to be the base times the height, and whatever that is, we're going to divide that by 2, right? So we see that the base is going to be, so the area is going to be the base, which is 8, and times the height, which is 5. And then after multiplying those 2, I'm going to divide it by 2. So that's going to be 40 divided by 2, which is equal to 20. So that is the area, 20 inches squared, because we're working with inches, right? And remember, the squared is just part of the units whenever you're doing area. It's always inches squared, meters squared, feet squared. We can talk about the y more later. So now that I have an answer, what's cool about this worksheet is that it's easy to tell whether or not you got it right or not. Really, all the right answers are over here. And so if you don't find your answer over here, you did something wrong. So for number 1, I got 20. And so I'm looking, and here it is. So number 1 is going to be I. And wherever I say number 1, I'm going to put the letter I. There we go. And then I'm going to circle it or cross it out. Let's try the next one, which is actually the exact same one that we did in our note. So let's actually do number 3. Number 3, notice how our base is 20 and our height is 7, 20 and 7. And notice how they tell us that this is the height. This is the shortest distance from the base to the highest point. And I know that they show me with by showing me these are perpendicular. They make a right angle. All right, so 20 times 7, that's 140. 140 divided by 2 is going to be 70. So 20 times 7 is 140 divided by 2 is 70 centimeters squared. 70 centimeters squared is right here. So wherever I see 3, I'm going to put a P. 3, and here's P. There we go. So that's pretty much it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that this was easy to follow. It's pretty simple. There's nothing really crazy about today's lesson. And yes, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. And yeah, I will see you next time.